While the experience of these children show that they are especially sensitive periods of development, we also now understand that early experiences matter more for some children than others. This idea has been captured through the concept of so-called dandelion children, who, like the plants, are able to survive and thrive in a wide variety of environments, and those who are more like orchids, who are only able to flourish under narrow range of environmental conditions. For example, in a study of 338 children aged 5 to 6 years, researchers identified a group that had lower behavior problems and did better in school when their home environment was low stress, but reacted badly if they grew up in high stress homes, as reflected by low family income, harsh parenting, and maternal depression. Obradovic et al. 2010. These orchid children were especially responsive to their environment, showing greater plasticity, and this made them more susceptible to the effects of both, especially positive and negative environments. The dandelion children, by contrast, were much less affected by either the harsh or the positive background. Key point: early experiences matter, but they matter to some children more than others. There are three subtleties to the big picture. Maybe it's subtleties. Yeah, subtleties. Why is it subtleties? Anyway, to the big picture that is important for understanding early experiences. First, the categories of dandelions and orchids can be useful shorthand for talking about sensitivity and resilience to stressful environments. But no one is suggesting that all 2 billion children on Earth can be classified according to only these two types. Most children fall on a continuum between these extremes. And some researchers have taken the flower analogy further, suggesting that tulips are moderately influenced by their experiences. Second, the researchers show that some outcomes are more likely than others for some groups of children. But this doesn't mean any individual child is deterministically doomed if they experience adverse early experiences, as dandelions show. And as we will show, adversity can also be a source of strength. Caregivers and children, wider social networks also play a significant role in shaping children's responses to adversity. With the presence of predictable, stable, and responsive figure helping to buffer some of the more harmful effects of early stress, GarDjinn 2015, Hostiner et al. 2015. Finally, and perhaps unfortunately, the reverse is also true. If you've had a good start in life, this doesn't mean that you got it made. A bad environment or bad luck later on in life can undo the advantages of secure and stable childhood. Bjorklund, 2020. Can children predict the future? Megan Gunner, director of the Institute of Child Development at the University of Minnesota, describes that one of the most common behaviors she sees among post-institutionalized children is indiscriminate friendliness. A child who doesn't know you from Adam will run up, put his arms around you, and snuggle in like you're his long-lost aunt, cited in Weir, 2014. In a study of 65 toddlers who had been adopted from institutions, she found that the attachment style of these children were often disorganized, see box 4 2.1, sometimes approaching the caregiver for comfort, and other times showing resistance, Carlson et al., 2014. Gunnar also thinks that his indiscriminate friendliness was probably an important coping strategy in their socially starved early lives, or in other words, these infants' attachment style was adjusted to the kind of parenting they received. This suggests that something more general might be going on. Early experiences can act as an imperfect predictor of things to come and in turn shape children's development to help them adapt into the world. Let's look at one example from history in which this has happened. Towards the end of the Second World War, a portion of the Dutch population was exposed to severe winter and led to widespread starvation and malnutrition, with many people resorting to eating tulip buds and nettles to survive, including a young Audrey Hepburn. While the circumstances of the Dutch famine was tragic, it provided a unique natural experiment to examine the effects of nutrition on subsequent generations. Not surprisingly, women who were pregnant during the famine had babies with lower birth weight. More unexpected, perhaps, these babies grow up to have much higher risk of being obese. Lumley et al., 2021. What was going on here? These infants produce higher levels of an appetite regulating hormone called leptin, which caused them to store greater amounts of fat than children who had more nutritious prenatal diets. In this case, the environment signaled to the children, while still in the womb, that food was scarce, so they developed a thrifty metabolism that was more likely to hold onto calories for longer. A similar sensitivity were extremely demonstrated in a study that invited some pregnant women to consume an anise-flavored food, while others did not. At birth and 4 days later, only those infants born to the non-anise consuming mothers displayed an aversion to it. Skal et al., 2000. Discover what natural experiments like the Dutch famine and controlled experiments can teach us about child development. We can extend this idea in predicting the future from psychological responses to psychological ones. For example, the children growing up in supportive and predictable environments tend to develop a more future-orientated go-slow strategy, to be less risk-prone, and to invest more in their relationships. In contrast, children growing up in harsh, unpredictable environments tend to develop an opportunistic, go-fast lifestyle to engage in risky behavior, to become sexually active earlier, and to invest relatively little in their relationships. Alice et al., 2009. While these later behaviors might be frowned upon by middle-class society, Dutch developmental psychologist William Frankenhuis has argued that more adaptive were children growing up in harsh and unpredictable conditions and more continuous and culturally approved behaviors when the future is uncertain. It makes more sense to prefer immediate over-delayed rewards and to develop a lifestyle for dealing with threat and rapidly changing conditions. Frankenhuis et al., 2016. That is what researchers found who followed the lives of children, adolescents, and their families from China, Italy, Jordan, Kenya, the Philippines, Sweden, Thailand, and the United States over 6 years. Chang et al., 2019. Those children and adolescents living in unsafe neighborhoods and with family chaos and fluctuating incomes and experiencing stressful life events during childhood were more likely to adopt